you so much for allowing me to speak. And it's absolutely a big challenge to speak after Chantel, Ngobisita, and Dr. Sibanda. So I will be very brief and focus particularly on, the context of Southeast Asia and North Africa, the context of Kenya. When you look at Nepal, when you look at Bangladesh, when you look at Morocco, when you look at Madagascar, when you look at Kenya, all of these are Gen Z protests. They're movements led by young people who are demanding public accountability, who are demanding that institutions that serve people must, in essence, work for the beneficiation of the ordinary citizen and not the political elite. So I will start by just making inference to what we have seen recently in social media. Scandal after scandal, and it's something that was really spoken about by Ngobisita. Scandal after scandal of, the president's daughter-in-law splashing money, in Italy. The children of civil servants being able to buy a $2,000 Gucci bag, and posting that on social media. And these are things that have been happening in the Zimbabwean context, but we have seen that in other contexts like Nepal, Bangladesh, Morocco, Kenya, it has caused massive upheaval and uproar to the point where certain regimes have actually been toppled, have actually been brought out of power, because people were willing to actually organize meaningfully and powerfully. So, this question around how are we going to interpret public finance from a place of what touches the core of the daily existence of young Zimbabweans, just really about making a critical inquisition at what young Zimbabweans connect with, the lived realities, the day to day realities of their lives. We had a What Youth Want research. And in that particular research, we really narrowed down on the socio-economic wants of young people. And it's really in the basics. People want food to eat, three basic meals a day. There are people in Zimbabwe today who cannot afford to get three basic meals a day. People want access to good quality education. We've had the stories, particularly in Mutare, for instance, where there's a lot of hot sitting because the number of schools available for learners and the number of learners who need this infrastructure, there are obviously more learners than there are schools for these learners. So you have a batch of young people that are going to attend school in the morning and then some in the afternoon. And this compromise on the quality of education. We've seen the same thing in universities where you have lecturers that are earning 238 US dollars every month. And they're consistently on strikes and they're not teaching young learners, which compromises the quality of our education system. We go into the healthcare where we have young Gen Zs who are starting families, who are becoming moms and dads. And these young mothers, these young Gen Z mothers, are dying in public hospitals during childbirth. They're losing their children. Sometimes they go there, they give birth, and it's a stillbirth. And a lot of these things can be preventable if we have functional public health infrastructure. Now, the critical inquisition is Zimbabwe, as rich as it is. I like the statistics and the numbers that Ngobisita was giving. We have so much wealth. We have so much wealth in our gold reserves, in our diamonds, in our lithium. Now we've got critical minerals, such as lithium. Where does all the money go? And why is it that that money is not ending up supporting the sustenance, supporting the fundamental rights? Mind you, there's the socioeconomic rights, the political rights, the environmental rights of the people of our country. What is actually happening? And that's the critical inquisition. So I wanted just to say that for us to be able to build sustainable, viable movements, that are centered around this question of what youth want, and particularly accountability and public finance, we need to look at the Nairobi model. We need to look at the Nairobi model because in Nairobi, when Ruto increased the taxes, there was something inside every Gen Z in which they were able to connect an increase in taxes and they're able to connect that with them, failing to have a dignified life. They were able to make the connection between that increase in tax with them being unable to access good quality education, good quality healthcare, good quality public transportation, them being unable to live a good quality life. And that particular connection can only happen through prolonged and sustained civic education. In Zimbabwe, we've had a similar instances where Mutuli Ngube has on countless occasions increased taxes. And we have not had the same kind of response that we saw in Kenya. You look at it from the place of Mozambique, where they had a stolen election, and their response was to organize dynamically and powerfully. We also had a stolen election, and we did not organize in the same manner. The fundamental difference that I've seen in this country is that the ruling regime the ruling regime, and particularly the elites in that particular class of individuals, have been instrumental in co-opting young people, and particularly those with influence, into like a pseudo elite group where the system itself selects you, right? And when you are selected, you are rewarded, you are given a car, you're given a house, you are made the special one. And a lot of young people that would otherwise have influence to rise up and stand up have been co-opted into this narrative that if you join this bandwagon of individuals who are looting the country dry, who are fundamentally destroying our future, membership is benefits, basically. So that's the kind of approach. And on the other hand, they control the narrative that individuals who are going against the government, individuals who are speaking up against the corruption, against the looting, right? You're going to see them at Chikurubi Maximum Prison, and they are going to make some of the worst depictions of those individuals to say, look, you can either be the one that's receiving a nice car, or you can be the one that's doing time at the maximum security prison. So it creates this sharp contrast in how they are controlling the narratives, either through violence, force, the weaponization of the judiciary, or on the other hand, through a membership that has benefits. So the reality of the matter is we need to intensify our approach to civic engagement, and particularly civic and political education, to the point that young people have such a disdain and distaste for corruption, for the kind of splashing of looted resources. They have a deep disdain for all of that, to the point where they're able to do what we saw happening in Nepal, what we've seen happening in Morocco, what we've seen happening in Madagascar, what we've seen happening in Kenya. That can only happen when young people are able to connect. And that is something that can be achievable through civic and political education. So I land here by saying that we need to simplify this conversation around public financing, around tax, around budgeting, to speak into how that is taking away food from the tables of many Zimbabweans, to speak into how that leads to a young Gen Z mother dying in a public hospital because they simply didn't have the very basics that is essential for you to have a delivery, to deliver a healthy baby. We need to be able to simplify, how certain allocations that are going to the military, certain allocations that are going to, these different ministries, but without really focusing on building a social welfare state, without focusing on the socio-economic, the material conditions of the people of this country, how that leads to living a life with limited opportunity, a life with limited possibility, and basically replicates and manufactures human misery. And until there is that connection, until